Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Death By, where contestants will earn reps for their arguments for a chance to stand on top of the podium pedestal. I am your host, Lauren Kalil. Whoever I decide has the best argument through the final round will earn 30 seconds to talk about a topic of their choosing. On today's episode, we of course have Sean Woodland producing for us, but alongside him, Tommy Marquez is going to be jumping in the ring today.
Go get him.
We have affiliate owner and CrossFit analyst Chase Ingram with Get With The Programming. Fixing the hair, looking good. And we have the 2008 CrossFit Games champion, 8-time Games athlete, and affiliate owner of NC Fit in the house, Jason Khalipa.
Oh, that's intimidating. Dang.
Oh, he's going to get something.
Oh, now he's got a bat.
He's always has props.
Oh, yeah.
Ready to dish out some death by punishment here.
We're ready. We're ready.
He's trying to eliminate everyone here. Let's play Death By. Topic number 1. Well, speaking of the Rogue Invitational, they recently announced that 6-time CrossFit Games athlete champion Tia-Clair Toomey would receive the final invite among the 19 other women competitors. So what makes a better storyline, Tia winning Rogue or Tia not winning Rogue? Jason, we'll let you start this one off.
Hey, you know what? Look, I love Tia. I think she's incredible. So not too much of a clickbaity here. I'm going to say that I want her to win. I want her to win because I want her to represent someone who's not only been, Olympian, done so many different things, but also had a baby, came back, and is still dominant. So Tia, I'm a lifetime Tia fan, so I want her to win. I want her to do well.
2 points for Jason. Tommy, we'll let you go next.
As also a lifetime Tia fan, I would actually say that not winning by a close margin and even maybe not finishing on the podium by a close margin is what's going to give the best storyline. The name of the game is intrigue, right? And what gives the most shocking and most interesting performances taken from some movie stuff is when the superheroine suddenly gets knocked down and has to climb their way back. So I think Tia having a couple bumps in the road on her way back from pregnancy would only set up for a greater triumph, which would be a better storyline overall going into the season.
Ooh, 4 points for some movie references. I'm catching on here, Tommy. Well, Chase, what do you think? Should Tia win, or is the better storyline if she does not?
So it's not a question of what I want to happen as far as who I like and dislike, but what is going to be better for the overall storyline for the CrossFit Games, and that is 100% Tia not winning the Rogue Invitational. Because anytime you take a dominant athlete or a dynasty out of their sport, the next year there's always those questions that come of, oh, this new champion or this new team, could they have won if the old dynasty were there? And what's better for the sport is that if Laura Horvath comes out and wins the Rogue Invitational and Tia does not, because that's not only good for the narrative going forward for the game season, it's great for Laura and her storyline and her victory at the CrossFit Games this year. It bolsters the interest in what Tia Toomey is going to be this coming year. So I think it's great for Tia. I think it's great for Laura. I think it's fantastic for Rogue. And more overall, it's the best thing that can happen for the CrossFit Games season this.
Oh, Chase, you earned yourself 6 points for that answer. I like
Why don't you just give them 10? Come on.
Trickle down. Jason, you gotta bring more oomph.
No, you know what? I really like their answers. Can I just copy that and can I get more points?
You have to brandish the bat more menacingly in your next answer. I think you'll get more points.
Right. I'm on it.
I'll let you go last this round so that you can steal some of their answer and maybe earn more points. Going into round number 2, 95% of the events are going to be inside the arena because it's air conditioned. That was a quote that Dave Castro recently said on the Mic Drop podcast when talking about the games moving to Fort Worth, Texas. What are your initial thoughts on this? Tommy, we'll let you start this round.
My initial thoughts are this is what was expected, right? I mean, given the temperature and the layout of the venue and the unknowns of actually operating, the magnitude of everything that the games are in a new city, you're going to have so many variables. Why not reduce the amount of unknowns and things that you can control. Having events inside, making sure that weather is not going to be a factor, things aren't going to get derailed, and you're going to be able to operate a clean and well-run games from the, I guess safety is maybe the word, the safety of an indoor arena where you can make sure the athletes can go out there and put forward their best performance.
3 points for Tommy Marquez. Chase, a Texan himself. Did this surprise you? What are your thoughts on this one?
It surprised me a little bit because if you look at the CrossFit Games as they were born outside, the greatest events we've ever had were outside events. Burden Run, Soccer Chipper, Capital. But on the flip side of that is that you got to look at what this short-term solution may be for a long-time play. Yeah, 95% of the events are going to be inside. It's going to take away from a lot of the creativity we get from outdoor events. But I believe this is a short-term thing for a long-term play. We can package this up and sell it from city to city instead of doing a long-term sit in one city. And I believe this is actually the first step to take the CrossFit Games to what has been begged by a European contingency, is going overseas for the first time in a shorter time window. So I think this is a longer-term play than just having events inside in Fort Worth.
4 points for Chase. Jason, I saw you making some faces in the background as Chase was talking.
I disagree. I mean, I think obviously I thought Burden Run and Capital were incredible events, but I actually think where the real heat is at, where the real fire comes in, is in the stadium, right? The crowd's erupting, the energy's on point, but most importantly, from a spectator perspective, people can understand better what's going on. There's markers set up, there's different judging areas so that people who are new to the sport can actually it's easier for them to understand what it is, and it's replicable. I think that the stadium idea and having 95% of them is genius. I think the sport needs to define where it's going to be at. I think it needs to narrow itself in so it could be more mass marketed and can go ahead and approach in other areas. When we went to Team USA for the first time, we were in a hangar. It was epic because they were able to repeat that in different areas. Let's go.
Yeah.
Jason, you got 5 points that round. 5 points. You're making a comeback.
Wasn't a 6, but maybe if I showed
it wasn't a 6-pointer, but that's okay. Follow-up question. Do any of you feel like the 95% of being inside, that takes away a little bit about a little bit of the other elements that you can play around with, whether it is an open water swim, whether it's a trail run, bike, all of those things?
I'll jump in. I think there's a unique element where now you can create some palace intrigue around what is that 5%, right? You can kind of build up the lore of what is going to be that one event that takes place outside. Offsite events are very, very expensive. And if we're talking about making this more efficient and setting it up for maybe a jump like Chase said, which I agree with, to Europe, let's make sure everything else is run super clean and lean. And then maybe we can pour a little extra into that one event that we know is coming, and maybe make it a spectacle and do something that's completely out of the blue and kind of knock your socks off. And I think the contrast between that one event standing tall amidst everything else running really, really well, I think would be a pretty good recipe for success.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to build off Jason's point because he made a great point, is that the fire being in the Coliseum. You know, I talked about these offsite events or the Zeus rig that we may never see again if we don't get to go outside into a bigger venue. I don't even know if you thought about that. But if you think about the possibilities that happen inside the Coliseum, think of one of the most electric, exciting events that were ever programmed at the CrossFit Games. And it wasn't even that crazy of a programmed event, and that was push-pull. Push-pull in 2014 under the lights at the StubHub Center. And that can be replicated inside a Coliseum where it's louder, it's brighter, there's more ravenous fans, there's more people. So I'm not saying it's necessarily a negative, but I am saying the reality of things we will lose out on going inside in a Coliseum, specifically for 95% of the events.
Can I just say, I think 2024 is going to be a breakout year for the CrossFit Games. I'm saying it here first. I think I was with Don the other day. We were doing a ruck together, and I was talking to him about what the games are going to look like this upcoming year. And I'm very inspired by his vision and the team's vision for where it's going to go. I think that they're looking at it more so like, how do we create this thing to be sustainable and to bring in new eyes? With more eyes, it's going to just get everybody doing better, right? We want to be able to get these athletes paid, and we need sponsors. And having this closed stadium with more repeatable style events, that's a cleaner interface that you don't have to worry about going offsite all the time. I think it's just a step in that direction because CrossFit, it's been so broad for so long. I think it needs to narrow it down a little bit to really be something that can be sustainable for the next decade, 2 decades, and dominate.
Can I talk?
Yeah, Sean, producer,
I think
come
another
on
thing,
in.
just broadcast standpoint. Think about how easy it is to sell that now in one place as a made-for-TV event where you can show live competition, in a longer window. It makes it more appealing for something like ESPN or a CBS Sports Network too. And I know you guys kind of touched on that, but that's a big part of it as well.
And then that talks to, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep going because you guys are killing it on these freaking points here, but that comes to both of what you guys are saying when you think about sustainability. Sustainability is synonymous with profitability. And we know that the games over the last 17 years have been not a profitable event for the whole because of the magnitude that is the CrossFit Games, going back to the Home Depot StubHub Center and now moving to Madison with building an entire North Park field in a parking lot. And to Sean's point is that now you have 2 locations you actually need to set up for a broadcast. That's 2 different, basically, broadcast trucks and systems you have to put in place. And now you bring it to a new Edge Stadium that can have more people. That's more money coming in the doors with ticket sales. More suites. That's more money you can sell for these type of things. And I believe that the smaller you make this, again, short-term play, you can package this, make it more viable financially in a short window, and then maybe we can expand. And that's what it could be. This could be a whittle down to propel forward and maybe make massive again.
Proof of concept.
I don't think this is this is just the first step of what could be a huge, massive leap in the right direction.
From an affiliate standpoint, especially because a couple affiliate owners and all affiliate members in some capacity, does it add buy-in from members when 95% of the workouts are inside, thinking that maybe you'll be able to implement more of that into your affiliate, or does it not really matter? Does that not add any value to the sport?
I think it does because it's going to be more CrossFit. My thing is members want to connect. So if you look at the CrossFit Games, 95% of the people in the stands do CrossFit, but it's hard for them to connect with what it feels like to do a burden run or a whatever. It's easy for them to connect with what it feels like to do a thruster or a burpee or something that's indoors. So in my opinion, I think it's going to foster a deeper connection because most movements, most of the time indoors are going to be more of things they've seen compared to the bike event at this year's games. They just can't connect to it as much. So for that reason, I think it's better.
All right, we have Chase. You're still in first, man. Is anybody going to take you down? 10
Probably,
points.
I don't know. This next one.
Tommy and Philippa are tied for second. We're going to see what happens, I guess, in this third round. I'm kind of hoping somebody takes Chase down. I'm sick of titling him as the winner.
That has not set this up very well for the next.
If I lose, I want my performance to go on O'Keefe's record. If I win, then I'll take it. But
great points, you get 0. I'm like, what?
Here we go. Topic number 3, third and final round. One of the CrossFit tenets that we hear all the time is unknown and unknowable. Do you love it? Do you hate it? And where is the line between being essential versus being harmful? Chase, I'll let you start with this one.
All right, I'll expand on the unknown and unknowable because I think it's an unfair pretense of what it is that CrossFit is a broad, general, and inclusive fitness program that prepares us for the unknown and unknowable. So just saying unknown and unknowable just means we don't know what we're doing. It's totally random and people have no idea what's going on. I know the other side of this argument and I don't disagree with it, but I'll make a case for the CrossFit Games as the way it stands now. I don't think we need to do something like chase other sports to try to make this more popular. I actually think that might be a downfall for this. It's it needs to be more like basketball. It's the same game, it's the same place, it's the same setup. It needs to be more like the Olympics. It's the same events, it's just run around the track. I still want to stick to the roots because that's what makes the CrossFit Games, since that's the attraction. The hard part is that CrossFit Games now is a sport for CrossFit fans, and we need to make it a palatable sport for fans across the world. So things we do need to simplify. Going inside and making a legit field of play that doesn't change often and easy to understand. Setting up the field of play with details and understanding that the layman person can come in and know what's actually happening within 60 seconds. Adding more details and graphics and event descriptions so show us what we're actually testing for in these kind of things. I think you can go the extra mile for more details and not stray away too much from the unknown and unknown element that makes the CrossFit Games the CrossFit Games.
I like the details in that answer. That's got to be a 5-pointer.
Ooh.
Sorry,
Jason.
It's 1 out of 10 pointer before. Don't worry.
He's upset. Jason, let's hear it. How many points can you get on the board with this last question?
Well, I'm not going to recite the CrossFit Level 1 manual like Chase started off with. But I do appreciate his perspective on it. In my opinion, I think this idea that the events always have to be random, I think it does the sport a disservice. I think it does a disservice for two main reasons. I think it makes judging very, very difficult. In business and in life, like especially in business, we always think about like, if you're reinventing the wheel every single day, it gets hard to become an expert or great at something because you're always reinventing it. But if you just streamline just a little bit, it would help with judging errors where people are doing something different. It would help with like people doing weird stuff you didn't expect because you'd seen it before. And it would also help. The biggest reason I think that we should start streamlining some of this is so that spectators and commentators can start talking about the legacy. I think that's a fact that we're really missing out on. When I'm watching baseball with my son, it's cool to hear, hey, the record was set this date by this person and this person's chasing it. I think that's an area of the sport that would allow anyone who tunes in to say, oh, wow, Rich Froning is trying to catch up on this record. And even if they don't understand the history, they could feel compelled to watch that particular event. So for those reasons, I think we need to streamline more, make it less unknowable and a little bit more knowable and make it more CrossFit. Like when you think about CrossFit, what do you think about? That's what I think the CrossFit Games should represent.
The pull at the legacy there. 6 points.
Oh!
So close, Jason. So close.
What did I need to take over the champ? What did I need to take him over?
Oh man,
You needed to be better in the other rounds.
Question one.
You were really strong in this last round, but too weak at the beginning.
Oh man, I don't know how I'm going to top that. I mean, love it or hate it. I mean, I love it. Maybe not as much as the salad that Chase has on top of his head right now that he's rocking and trying to grow. That is pretty sweet.
Take your hat off right now.
Hey, I was ready. I was ready for that. I did that intentionally.
I feel attacked. I feel attacked right now by haired individuals.
But still, I think I like it, and I think there's a way to accomplish both. Right? I think there's a way to stay true to the methodology in a way that's relevant to the sport, while also creating that not predictability, but enough of an understanding of what's coming so that we can build those storylines for things like records and long-term goals for the sport and create legacies as well. I always think that the mark of a good cook is being able to create delicious variety with just a handful of select ingredients. And I think that applies to the sport in that we should always know what's in our cupboard, but the meal might be able to change from day to day. And I think Dave, Boz have proven to be able to take some of the classic elements of CrossFit and create a ton of cool variety with that. So I think with that in mind, if we start to lock down things like movement standards, the movements that are going to be done, even libraries, as well as judging, those types of things should be known at all times so we can create those storylines and the athletes can feel confident in what they're going to tackle no matter what the combination is. But then we give enough freedom to actually get into the kitchen and cook a little bit. And I think we're not as far off from that as we think. I think it might take some reframing of some structural stuff that has maybe not been at the forefront, like something like a movement library you would have gotten pushed back tremendously on in years past. But I think with a modern era of the sport trying to build for something so much bigger than what we're at now, I think that's possible. And I think then again, that's also going to better refine the ability of the programmers of the sport to be able to create something cool and unique, as well as something that could be pervasive down to the affiliates that they're going to do, in years to come.
Tommy, 5 points for you.
Holy.
It's good.
Is there more than that?
Sean.
I'm just voicing my opinion. I'm not altering the scores. I'm just saying.
The peanut gallery again.
Do I need a bat or a weapon?
Yeah, I know.
I wish that it was unknown and unknowable about who was going to win, but Chase, somehow you did it again.
Sorry.
Man.
To
You
be fair,
earned 30
Tommy came in at
seconds.
the very last minute, and I had
He
time
did.
to prepare.
He did. Do you have anything new to stand on top of the podium pedestal and talk about?
Ooh, is this my 30 seconds?
This is your 30 seconds. Let's go, baby.
Man, I'm so bad at these.
Jason, do you want to take it from him?
30 seconds for Justin Kotler's sake.
You should yield the floor to somebody.
Ooh, I will do that.
Yeah.
I will yield the floor to Jason Kalipa so that he knows what it's like to sit in the winner's circle.
Oh boy.
Man.
Oh, don't take it, Jason. Give it right back.
I should
Throw the baseball back. That's a home run in a opposite field park.
I wasn't expecting to get the W today. But here is one thing to bring up. The CrossFit Games, based on what I read, is going to be 4 days. Is that what it was? It's reduced down.
That's what the schedule says.
It brings up the question of teams, age group, and adaptive. And I personally believe that what's best for each of those demographics and groups is actually to house their own specific events where they could be the tip of the spear. And I think allow these athletes to be the tip of the spear at the games and allow them to be highlighted and be the show at other events throughout the year. So I don't know if it's an unpopular opinion, but my opinion is let the CrossFit Games in July or August or whatever highlight the individual competitors, and then let other events highlight the other groups, because they're going to do a better job overall over time to get those athletes paid too.
Well said.
Chase.
I like that.
Separate
good.
teams.
I'm tired of seeing a GoFundMe. I am. I don't want to see anyone GoFundMe. I don't.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, that's a good point.
I want to see athletes making enough money to be able to go to their respected end game, the world championships. We should try and get as many viewers, as many sponsors, that these athletes can go there without having to spend additional money. That should be the goal, to get everybody paid.
See, it's so much better than anything I would have said.
Yeah.
I'm curious about teams, though. I mean, teams separating too?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so that's another thing about the Coliseum that I didn't bring up is team. Like, team events traditionally are much easier to manage, program for. Well, I don't want to speak for the programmer, but for outdoor venues. Like indoor, it gets tough.
I mean, I'll just ask this question. What do you think most people, most of the time, are tuning into the CrossFit Games to see?
Individuals.
And even with the individuals, what group of individuals?
Final heat.
Yep.
Top
So
two
I
heats.
think that the CrossFit Games, if you're trying to be everything to everybody, it's very difficult. And I saw this last year. I mean, do you think about just all the equipment move around, all the events, everything? Imagine if you took this brilliant group of people who's working on all these different age group and all these different demographics, and they took all their minds and focused on one thing. And then a couple of months later, they did another event. And a couple months later, they did another event. Imagine how brilliant this event can be when you're not trying to move equipment in and out to accommodate the teams, accommodate this, accommodate that. I'm super excited for what that could look like in the future.
I like
Championship month.
I agree. Championship month, man.
Ooh.
That's what I want to see.
Build it up to the games. You have one a week, builds up. It's like bowl season.
Man, I'm worried that the team competition would die if it got split off, because I think the team competition is a good primer, and you can still see some stars on the field of play, and it's almost like extra innings in baseball. It's like free baseball. You get a little bit of extra, see a few stars that are up and coming, or some athletes that maybe stepped aside for a year, and you get to see maybe some people from your affiliate if they're representing that affiliate. And I don't know if the team competition, unless you made it a big one and you did multiple tiers of divisions for that, would stand on its own.
So Tommy, pulling on that thread, if it can't stand on its own, should it be standing at the CrossFit Games, the World Championship, the premier?
I'm glad you asked that.
Should it be taking time and attention away from this brilliant team? And look, this is with all due respect to every demographic. I'm just saying that if you want to make this the world's premier CrossFit Games competition, if you really want to make it something special, think about all the limitations that are placed upon the groups, the broadcasters, the announcers, the judges, the this, that, because you're trying to accommodate for all these different demographics. So now imagine if you only wanted to say, I want to test for the fittest on earth. How many events would you have? Imagine if you had a blank slate. What would you do? And I think that should be the mentality. And then you could also do that for each demographic throughout the year, because now you're specializing in that group.
It's a good point.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I was going to ask that question. I'm glad you did, Jason. But like, well, if it can't stand on it, like if it can't stand on its own, like, should it be part of? I don't know. It's an interesting question.
I mean, I don't know.
I think it depends who you have in there too. I think it
depends.
Should it change entirely to the Wadapalooza format and allow individuals to do both?
I think that might be a good way to go with it, because I think we've gotten away from the affiliate cup thing.
It's not the affiliate cup anymore.
It's not. It's like and they when they made that rule about the super team thing, all they did was just punt that ball down. They just punted it a couple of years down the road, because as we've seen already, people are going to start moving again and forming super teams.
See, that's where I think it would be better. If
like
it's
the Wadapalooza team format is the best team.
It's so fun. Yeah,
it is.
So let's pull on that thread just for a second. If you think that Wadapalooza is the best team format because there's storytelling around these premier athletes that are doing it, right? And I agree with you guys. Then you cannot, by design, have that occur at the same time as the CrossFit Games. Right. So imagine if you did it 3 months off. Now all of a sudden, all these top tier athletes that are competing at the CrossFit Games are now looking for another opportunity to come together. It was almost like Team USA. And now you're going to get more eyeballs, more viewers, more money coming in to get the athletes paid and the event get paid, Yeah,
I would do it like I actually would make it like an invitational thing, but just expand the invitational, where like you sort of have an all-star event at the end of the season, where you pick your top 3 from every country, men and women. And
I like that idea.
Then you have
and maybe a Legends team.
Yeah, and then you have like a 3-day event.
9.
Just that was like the invitational. We have Team USA, Team Canada, Team Asia, Team Oceania, Team Africa, Team Europe, and you just go through it.
Okay, so my only pushback on this, and this is why I brought it up about separating the team competition, because I think the team competition serves more purpose than just being to stand alone on its own at the highest level as a premier event.
Okay.
I think in many ways it feeds the competitive desire and intrigue for people at lower levels of the season that keeps them engaged throughout the year. There are more. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a significant portion of the people who reason for signing up for the Open or their ability to compete in the season dictates around the existence of the team competition, even the belief that you can maybe make a squad, right? That could compete at quarterfinals.
Just for quarterfinals and semifinals.
Yeah.
And that's a good point.
And I liken it to the same idea. You mentioned, if it can't stand on its own, does it deserve to be a part of it? I mean, it's like, that's where I think the developmental process comes in. It's like a child, right? Your kid can't stand on its own in the early days, but you know that it's going to develop into something more, or it's going to help its development process into something that's potentially greater. I think there are a lot of people that get their start competing in teams, getting to kind of wet the beak on the competition side, that eventually stay in for the long term, that spend money, that become diehard fans, that maybe even become individuals. I'd have to go back and look at it, but there used to be a significant portion of the individual games athletes that at some point competed, probably not at the games, but at least at semifinals or regionals back in the day on a team.
Pat Vellner.
Yeah. So, I think it's
opportunity cost. I think if I'm CrossFit, I'm looking at it, I'm saying, hey, over the years, we've added more divisions by design, which is great.
Yeah.
But is that taking away from our premium experience? And long term, is that going to stifle the growth of our top tier product, which is going to then draw eyeballs and attention towards everything else we're doing? That's what I would be asking, right? You might need to take a step back from how many people are on there to take 400 steps forward, because the idea would be if you make this thing so popular, so polished, so pro, that you get all these new eyeballs, now they're gonna by design find their way into the CrossFit community. But you know what I mean? That's kind of
but I'm also like, there also has to be some sort of roadmap for what those 400 steps forward look like too, right? Like if it's like, oh yeah, we're taking a step back to move forward, but like, what does move forward looking like? We've heard a lot of like, hey, we need to be super clear about, what our path forward is, what our goals are, how we're going to operate as a team, what we want CrossFit to look like in 10 years, 30 million. I think Don quoted 30 million CrossFitters, right? Is the goal. But what are those steps in between? Is that a well-developed, amateur system in the sport. That was something that Dave teased years ago. You know, is that you know, tons of competition opportunities throughout the year that are separate from the games competition, similar to, you know, a tennis association or a junior golf association? Like, what does that look like? Are there any ideas behind it, or are we not even close to being that? Because I think that we're at the stage now where every time you take something away, people are like, all right, what am I getting back?
Yep.
Good discussion.
Those are
I know.
The bonus overtime here in Death by.
Great bonus overtime. It's got my wheels turning.
Yeah.
And
I wonder if it's the future.
Sorry, one last thing too, because I'm worried about if we hit those goals, which I think are great, there's going to be a tremendous a cohort of people bigger than any cohort that's been involved in CrossFit before that don't have any ties to the roots of the sport and the things that drew us in. Right? You're gonna have all these people globally that are just brand new, and they're going to want a little bit of everything. And so does taking that step back fully, I guess, cater to them, right? Are we catering to this like cohort that doesn't yet quite exist but could exist? You know, it's the idea of like, how do you manage your regulars at the bar? You know, do you give them their own table, or do you leave the possibility open for the new customers that you want to eventually have?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
I don't
what I
have
would say though is like, I don't think CrossFit's grown the last X amount of years, and I think that if it continues to do what it was doing, it's just gonna stall out. So you have these hardcore CrossFitters, and that's great. But what's the goal? The goal is to impact as many people as possible across the globe. And if you want to do that, a way to do that is by the top marketing funnel, which is ESPN. And I think that the more attention you can, the more you could take away distractions, which for sake of argument, like, dude, if you have 700 people showing up for the CrossFit Games, that's a lot to manage versus 40. And now all of a sudden, I'm just saying, like, if the top funnel marketing piece is here, then it's CrossFit's responsibility to drive those people through commercials and whatnot into affiliates and get them actually into the community.
That was a great conversation. Chase, congratulations, another week win. Jason, congratulations on being here.
A strong finish. A strong
finish.
Yeah.
You won overtime. You win
Yeah,
you
did
win overtime. Thank you for carrying that conversation forward and bringing up some new good points and questions. Tommy, Sean, thank you everybody for watching. We always do this live for our Patreon, so if you're interested in that, just hit us up. Otherwise, you can watch it on YouTube. Like, subscribe, hit the notification button, and we'll see you guys next week.